here by the microphone so that it can be picked up.
Want you close by.
Okay, great, thank you.
Diane, you're with us?
I am, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, welcome to what may be the final Budget Committee meeting of the season, unless something else comes up. But anyway, initially we would like to address whatever the school has for final items. You have an explanation you'd like to give, clarity, whatever, and we'll ask for a vote, and then we'll move to the town from there. And anybody wants to sit around me, that's all.
Have a handout here. If they didn't get one, we got more right here. So I'll have a few brief remarks relative to that. I just want to go through a few things and try to, I guess, not make excuses or anything like that, but I think a part of the process is explaining why I presented to the board the budget that I did and why they at this point accept or approve the budget that we have. Cost per pupil, that's been a topic I imagine for a long time in this town. We acknowledge that our cost per pupil is higher than the state average, significantly higher. I certainly acknowledge Mel's work and asking a very, very important question. Why are we so much higher? How much higher are we really? And I think there's some reasons for that. And I think there's some things that over time, as we look at that, work on that together as a community, that will come to fore that will help answer some of that. But I do point out the history of the cost per pupil. Hasn't changed too much over the years. In fact, it's going down. If you look at school year 16-17, we were about $4,900 over the state average. That's the green number. That dropped over $1,000 in a year. I can't promise you that it'll drop $1,000 every year. I can tell you that the basic math says we will drop again next year. This is always a year behind, for obvious reasons, because of the budget. But the current year that we're in, 18-19, our budget is reduced by another $300,000 and less. And again, we have had some decline in the number of pupils, so that's going to affect it some. But certainly the decline in the budget will, again, by definition, drop the cost per pupil again. Will the rest of New Hampshire go up or down? The trend certainly suggests that it'll go up again. So I would guess that cost per pupil gap will narrow even further, and we'll continue to see some decline, at least for the time being. The next page I did a general fund. This is the approved amounts over time, and you kind of get a sense of where it was a few years ago. A couple of years there that it was significantly lower, than a pretty steady increase. Topping out 16-17 at 15.8. Proposed puts us at 15.425. A little bit less than where it topped out. You know, I worry about how we present this a little bit, but it is what it is. The cost of placements, and you certainly, all of you who've been following our budget and following the newspapers and probably following some of the news from other schools as well, know that the cost of special education placements are a real challenge to us. And yet we recognize the need to educate all children. We certainly recognize the need to make sure that those children are safe, cared for, and but it is very costly. And a budget the size of ours, when you have a 451% increase over 5 years, where an item goes from $90,000 to $600,000 or $550,000, it's a challenge, and it makes us have to cut other places just to maintain some balance there, or in this case, raise the budget slightly. Some of this other information, slide 5 and 6, are just our enrollments. I'm repeating this Obviously, some of you who've been to the budget hearing have seen this data. You haven't seen maybe some of the other, but there's a repeat of some of the information we already shared with the budget, with our budget hearing. And we'll get to share it again next week when we do budget hearing part 2. So, yeah, 2.0 or whatever. But anyway, that is being as a maze, some information for you. You know, the special program enrollment, I think is important, has some important numbers there though. And CCC out of district, we have about 100 students come in. That varies, 100, 110, 105. That CTC does generate over $500,000 a year in revenue, which goes to lower the tax rate. So I think that's always important, especially as you start looking at cost per pupil, because revenue, we get no, the state doesn't say, well, you're generating this revenue, therefore your cost per pupil is less. They don't take that into account. Special education, 131 students. Choices is a special program we have at Lakeway, and the Academy is a special program we have on the middle school, high school campus. Both of those programs are critical. We would, if we didn't have those programs, we'd be sending even more students out. And we do have some districts that do send students to us for both of those programs, which generates a little bit of revenue. The bottom line is we have students in both those programs that were we not able to maintain them locally would be very costly going out.
Steve, is that 131 of the 698 or in addition to?
It is part of the 698. Yeah, good question, Ed. Yeah, these are just like the choices in Academy are part of the 131. So we don't have 131 sped plus 9 plus 26. They're subparts of that. Good question. Brother Knox Community School is not a part of the 698's adult ed program, and we talked about it at some length. And then the Little Leopards do have, though it's our preschool, do have individuals in that program who are a part of the special education head count as well.
Excuse me, Steve?
Yes.
The enrollment's gone up 9 special education since 2016, right?
Yeah.
9 students. But since 2016, you're up over $400,000 since 2016. Why is there such a high increase in 9 students?
Because of it, the increased costs aren't necessarily reflective of those 9 students. Rather, the increased cost is reflective of changes in some of the students who are already here that resulted in placement. In other words, those students' medical and educational circumstances and needs can change dramatically. We often, those who are parents who can relate to this with all kids, when they go through certain life changes related to age and developmental phases, they can change dramatically, their educational needs and medical changes or needs. So yeah, this isn't necessarily a reflection of new students.
Yeah, it just doesn't understand, I still don't understand
Yeah.
$400,000 with only 9 additional students.
But the
You're talking about
Ralph,
students changing and their systems or their programs changing,
yes,
but that's a lot of money,
But
$400,000.
realistically, we could have had a decline in special ed numbers
yeah.
and still had an increase in the budget.
Yeah,
So-
good, your question, your great question though, Ralph. Here's the thing you got to remember. Like we may have a student who we're able to maintain, maybe with a lot of support, and maybe a student who was in choices or was in the academy and we were okay, and something dramatic happened to that student that put them in a position where we couldn't serve their needs anymore. Or sometimes the courts come in and say this will happen as well. And so that same student, although it's not a new student, that's one of our existing students, but all of a sudden we have to send them someplace and it costs us $150,000. Some our most expensive placements around $200,000 a year. So all it takes is just a few little changes. So that rise is not a result of having 9 more students. It's a result of changes within the students that we have.
Steve, we also are responsible for them till they're 21 and then get increase. placement, so
Yeah.
some of the students that were
Yeah.
placement.
Some of these kids have 2 full-time aides.
But this is shocking.
And that's a state law, education law, because it seems to me that once a kid has to go in
Federal.
24/7 placement, it should become responsibility of the state.
Well, I think you could make an argument, the educational piece of it we get. I would question also why we have to pay the other 16 hours a day, but that's the way it is right now. That'd be a good question for elected officials and others, yeah.
Okay.
Slide 7, maybe you've seen this, this is just a projected enrollment. I do think that, doesn't matter what I think, but there's indications out there that Littleton will beat these odds. That Littleton is growing, will continue to grow, will continue to get younger. And, these numbers projected by NASDAQ won't necessarily become exactly true. We've seen some other projections that were less pessimistic than this, but NASDAQ is the organization we've historically contracted with. Slide 8 is the elementary school projected class sizes. As I pointed out before, grades 2 through 6, if you kind of average them all out, we're pretty much at the state average there. Yes, we do staff kindergarten more than, and we have smaller classes than the state average probably, although I don't know what that number is. We do know that our first grade classes are slightly less than the state average. But again, those are choices that we make. And we believe it in the end produces better outcomes for our students. But next year, again, the second grade is well above the state average, and so on. And many of you have seen these slides before. I won't continue with that. Slide 9, projected enrollment, middle school, high school. Slide 10 just has budget trends. We have reduced budgets with the exception of the CTC, and even in CTC, if you look at from 15-16 forward, significant decrease. You'll see the SPED increase significantly there in the last few years, mainly driven by those placements that's in that SPED budget, special education budget. And then just some of the budget challenges. There's again the data on this on the placements. You know, the stabilization. The state of New Hampshire reduces revenue to us by $60,000 a year as the stabilization grant goes away. We've talked at length about the cost of facilities of the Lakeway challenge that we have there, of the need to look at that building, replace that building. And aside from the obvious cost of rising social emotional needs, and that would be those students with the greatest needs, is an ongoing crisis of sorts with students with trauma, students who come to school not having slept the night before in some cases, or being in temporary housing, living with parents or with grandparents, with foster home, on and on and on. We've been hearing for years how certain trends are going to eventually start hitting the doors of the schoolhouse, and that's happening. And I think that there's ample evidence for that, and I think Crystal, as well as anybody else who's spent any time at the elementary school level in particular, can vouch for students are different than they were 5 years ago even, and we had challenges then too. So the socio-emotional needs of students are a significant challenge to us. So we do look on the other side of things, some revenue, sources of revenue. We do have if you look on the next page, slide 13, significant federal revenue through various grants. These grants, just so you know, these grants are not grants that we compete for. They're formula grants. Title I is part of a a federal program. So it's not like we have to apply for these grants every year. We have to account for how we spend the money, and the state of New Hampshire has to give us the approval on how to spend this money, but this money, unless changes are made at the federal level, is coming. So we get some for Title I, that's low income support. Title IIA is teacher training and support. IDEA is special education. And if you want to put it into perspective a little bit, think about that. That's the cost of one of those pupils.
If that.
If that. So from the feds. And so on. We've got a few new ones over there. You'll see in that far, the 1819 Title V is a new grant, Career Pathway Grant, which just came in. Adult Diploma, that's a foundation grant for above the notch community school. And then Title IV, which is a non-competitive federal grant for innovative programs. And the most of that money, this year's allocation will go into supporting above the notch next year. And I think it's worth noting what we're doing with in Title IV is a good example of this. That was a little unexpected. We got notified back in September, October, that this money was coming from the feds, and it was to go to new and innovative programs and so on. And boy, it didn't take long after that. My inbox started getting pounded with vendors. Title, oh, we want to do this. There's good stuff. And there's a lot of stuff we could have done with that money. We're not. We're sitting on it. It's going to help. Instead of doing something new and something different and something that'll have costs going forward for years to come perhaps, we're taking those dollars and keeping those dollars and applying them to above the notch next year. So that program is pretty well funded now. And that's kind of the mindset we try to operate under here as much as we can, thinking ahead instead of we got it, let's spend it, and let's spend it quickly. Other grants you'll see there, our grant writer has gotten a grant from Walmart, a grant that's supporting again some of our adult ed programs. These others are the state infrastructure grants, so that's the state funding, state share of those grants on slide 14. 15 and 16 just had the breakup, how the general funds split among salaries and benefits. And again, in a people-intense business like education, like healthcare, various other industries, those are the vast majority of your budget's coming from there. So when we make budget cuts, guess where it comes from? That's where it's got to come from. There's not much, the rest of the pie is pretty small. Doesn't mean we can't squeeze that down a little bit as we do, but it's pretty small. Revenue, again, New Hampshire is a locally funded, that's kind of the philosophy of the tax structure, the funding structure here. If you want it, you pay for it. It's not all bad, by the way. The only problem is that not everybody has the equal ability to pay, and so unfortunately, some places that is more of a challenge than others, having the local tax base to support education. Littleton's a little lucky there. We're not wealthy by any means, but we're certainly not at the level of Berlin and Franklin and Claremont and Rochester. Some of the schools, it's a real struggle to raise enough revenue and it's a real burden on the taxpayer.
Berlin is an aside, is you have to set the tax rate.
Yeah.
That's how it's something.
Well, we're going to be over $1 million per pupil next year. We did now. Berlin's what, 233,000, I believe, is their valuation per pupil. So that's really tough up there. Uh, 17, the default budget, and we went through that pretty thoroughly several times. Professional warrant article, you've all seen this. You've seen a lot of the data on that, slide 18, 19, 20. I think it's important, particularly 2021. you start looking at those numbers, you know, the teachers had no increase in salary this year because the warrant article was defeated. The only individuals, I guess, that got anything were 2 or 3 that got a tiny little longevity pay that was based on the old agreement. Or did they? Do we have anybody? That was it. But if you look on slide 21 there, you see the difference, significant difference, reduced by over a third. And you've all seen this before, and you've supported the budget committee's already lent its support to the professional staff warrant article. So move on to, the other is just the drafts. That's all they are, the drafts of the warrant articles, operating budget.
This is closer.
And, what's that?
These are the revised versions.
Yeah, and Tom has the next step to these. It'll actually be going into the warrant. So, I think 26 and 27, again, the estimated impact. Yes, go ahead.
Diane, a question?
Well, going back to the slides,
Yeah.
we went through the default budget slide and then the support staff agreement and what are some of the changes in the default budget compared to last year. But going back through last year's approved budget, we had, let's see, $102,000 in the operations for building repairs. And I guess it's my understanding that some of the changes in the default budget are due to one-time expenses. So I was wondering if any of those building repairs were one-time expenses. So that would be $102,000 right there. Is this the wrong time to ask this question? Are we gonna get to
No,
that?
this is fine, and Tom has got that thinking about it look on his face, and he's about to give us an answer.
The maintenance items that we see are by no means one time anymore. Certainly the items at Lakeway, replacing the heaters and things like that, they're just part of the operating budget now. The one-time items that we reduced were the funding of the capital reserve funds. They're technically not part of the default anyway, but if anyone was tracking and comparing to the amounts actually voted, those amounts from the prior year fund balance were included in the amounts voted. So that's why they have come out.
I guess I would question that because some of those items are one-time and not continuing plans. So anyways, we have a difference of opinion there. So anyways, that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, Diane, it dawned on me, you don't have the presentation I'm referring to, but I'm gonna send it.
I have all, I'm looking at.
Yeah, bits and pieces of it.
Documents online.
Yeah, this came from different presentations. I'll make sure you get it. And a lot of what I'm referring to, yes, it did come from the hearing presentation.
Right, and I'm following along on those
Right.
items that are listed on your website.
Great.
And I saw most of your slides here. I can
Okay.
follow along on
No,
those.
I'll make
so-
sure you get this presentation as well. So all we did was with slides 26 and 27, effects on tax rates. And again, this is information I think you've already seen, but basically you have obviously the operating budget effects, the professional staff agreement, and then Lakeway. And that Lakeway can kind of, depending on what finally shakes out there in terms of the length of the loan and so on. I hope that, I hope if you visit our website, now the hot topics button's almost impossible to miss, because it's right at the top. Kind of, it's not that it takes away from the aesthetics of maybe the page, but at least it's there. But it's there for a reason. We want it to draw people's attention. And we've got a lot of documents there, including Lakeway, all the meetings we had with Lakeway, the minutes, the agendas, and budget documents. It was so nice to be able to tell Diane today, just check there, she already had. I sent her some other things, but it's a, again, we know that we need to communicate better.
Steve or Tom, on slide 21, that compounded total of 343,685, that is what?
You want to talk about that, or you want me to?
Well,
Yeah.
That's fuzzy
that's
math.
year one twice and year two once, isn't it, Tom?
Yeah.
Should be.
Correct.
Of last year's proposal
Correct.
compared to
Well,
this year's proposal.
Well, yeah, in both columns, yes.
Last year at the deliberative session, one of the citizens made a point of pointing out the compounded cost of that, sort of that warrant article, because the way we have to present it by law doesn't show that. And so we just wanted to get that out.
Okay.
That's why it's on there.
And last year's,
The increase in year one is still there in year two.
I understand, it's
Yeah.
still there.
Yeah, if you stayed zero, it wouldn't be, so it is what it is.
last year's contract was a 3-year contract.
Yes.
Right, because the number we were talking about last year was actually $1 million.
Close to $1 million,
Yes,
yeah.
But in year two, the increase in your budget is 225,
correct.
Yes.
not 343.
No,
No.
No, that's the total.
yeah.
Year two's
Year two, it's an
106.
additional 106.
Between the two,
It's
yeah.
106, it's not-
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So in the second column, the first 2 years of failed proposal, are we catching up on that, and the total would be $522,000?
Compounded.
Compound.
Same principle, you count
Yeah.
174,389 twice and 173,514 once, and you
Yeah,
get
right.
the,
So is the warrant article, which warrant article would be effective here?
The current proposal.
The current proposal is what's gonna be on the warrant.
yeah, the
Yeah.
118 and
Yeah.
106.
And the other is just for information.
Yeah, just reference
Yeah, just to compare.
I can
Shows less.
do like that.
Yeah, it's a lot, it's a third. If you look at,
Look at the warrant article sheet, that's the way they're presented,
Yes,
just that the year-to-year increase.
I remember
And the cumulative.
How many employees does that include?
82.
82 in the bargaining unit.
Well, that's what's covered by the bargaining unit, but they're not all getting the raise. So,
Correct.
because some of them are off step. So it's really, we really appreciate the teachers' compromise here.
And let's see, if they're off step, there's no longevity either, or?
Well, some will have, they're already getting, once you get, say, to step, I think when you finish 17, or when you're off step and you finish the 17th year, you get $1,000, but it's not like it compounds, it's just you get that $1,000. So they're,
Get to 20.
right, until you get to 20 years, and then you get $2,000, and then you just stay like that until you get to 30 years, and then you get to move up to 2,300. So I guess, there are a fair amount of our staff who are, for 3 years, will have gotten no increase. So this is a compromise, which we really appreciate. from the
One, I
teachers.
believe, on the top step
So,
already. So there's no step for them to get an increase to.
Leslie, can you explain that just a little bit? So let's say they're at the end of their 17th year, they'll get $1,000. Is that correct?
yes, yes, that is correct.
And then if they go to their 18th year,
It's the same
is
principle.
it another $1,000 on top of what they just got, or just they stay flatlined at that amount that they got at the end of the 17th year?
It's your second option, the flat line. So they don't
Okay.
get a new 1,000, they just stay where they are.
So
Okay.
if they're $50,000 at the end of year 17, year 18, they're 51,000, they'll be at 51,000, year 18, 19, 20, until they get to
Until
the
they
next.
complete 20 and then
Yeah.
move up again.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else, Steve?
No, that's all I have.
Well, I mean, Leslie, I think obviously it's nice to, that was a good question asked last year, and I think it's nice to be ahead of the
Yeah.
question this year, because, it's,
And we really appreciate your support on this article, so it's pretty critical for our staff.
no, and like you already said, you said, I think that obviously, I think the teachers also realize the challenges, and obviously the teachers, I think, are committed to Lakeway, so I think that's part of their participation in trying to enhance the chances of it happening.
Well,
I believe.
I can't speak for them.
Yeah. Mel?
Can you explain what the relationship is, I'm looking on the page 8 of the proposed operating budget that was handed out to hearing. We've seen this for years. How does the general fund amount of $15,000,004, how does it relate to the special revenue funds of $650,000 and food service $400? Are those part of the general fund, or how are they accounted for? Outside the general fund?
Yes, we do gross appropriation, so all three of those funds need to be included in the warrant. The special revenues are actually the grant funds.
Right.
So to keep things level, we budget $650,000 of grant revenue, and there's a corresponding $650,000 of grant expenditure. If we don't get a grant, we don't have the expenditure.
And so
we cannot spend more than has been allocated.
So those two items don't affect the general fund?
No.
If there's money there, we can use it, and if there's not, we
Food
can't
service
use it.
is a nonprofit food service program under the National School Lunch Plan. And that has its own revenue, it has its own expenditures. If there is a shortfall, the district is responsible to make that fund whole, because it's nonprofit. And that's why you'll usually see a $30,000 budget item transfer to food service, out of the general fund into the food service.
But by law, we have to present it like this.
Any questions, Diane, or is that?
Well, I was going to go back to some of the slides if everyone else is done. So I was looking at the capital reserve funds and what you have planned, how you're going to use those funds. I have no question about the reasoning or what you're doing. Just why isn't this in the regular budget to be offset by the reserve account? So it shows the public the full amount of running the school system. So, for instance, Academy Windows, $20,000, and then $110,000 basically coming out of the school facilities capital reserve fund. Is there a reason why that's not just already put into the budget and saying, on the town side, we see that. They'll have an item in the regular budget, and then they let us know that it's going to be offset by something from a reserve account. And I was just wondering why the school doesn't do that as well, so we have a full total reckoning of how much we are spending on the schools for that coming year.
Those monies have already been raised in prior years through the fund balance. Most of these activities will occur during this fiscal year rather than the next budget year.
Well, again, just the full transparency of this is how much the school, operating the school does cost. And yes, with the town as well, those funds were appropriated previously, but it's still noted in the budget. So the bottom line encompasses everything that's being done to the school. I was just wondering why this isn't a practice on the school side. I think it's relatively new. We've been doing it. We've had these accounts, but it's been probably in the last 5 or 6 years that it hasn't been in the budget. It's been separate. The school board are acting agents to these accounts. I understand that. But again, it's just going back with the transparency. This is what we are actually spending on the school.
And And that's why the slide is there, yes.
You know, before you know, Diane's referring to the budget hearing document, so what some of the slide she's referring to you don't have in front of you. But I think, Diane, if I understand you correctly, what we did do though is made it very clear what we're spending, what we may be spending out of the capital reserve funds in the next year. So we try to do three things. We try to show what the beginning balances are, where we're sitting as of now, or at least as of December 30th. What we committed out of each of those funds to spend between now and, or what we committed and what we're going to spend out of those funds as we go through the rest of this fiscal year up to June 30th of 19. And then we've got some significant dollars in the general fund committed to facilities repairs and equipment repairs, and we try to spell those out, the major ones in those slides. But we're also potentially drawing considerable monies from those reserve funds. And frankly, those reserve funds will be significantly smaller a year from now. But you know, I guess we're listening a bit to some of the feedback we've gotten about the size of those funds and whether they need to be at the levels that they are. And we're not asking for permission to allocate unexpended funds back into those reserve funds either.
I understand that, but going back to the slide where we have the cost per student, this $110,000 then, or whatever each year, does not get included to the total cost, correct? Because you have a certain budget, you have this, even though it's, there are funds that have already been appropriated to other means, it's still a cost. And so this doesn't really reflect then the true cost per student, because we now have $110,000 in one area, $25,000 in another area. So I think you understand what I'm trying to say.
And those items that are more or less maintenance, or the smaller items, will be included in the annual reports, which is the source document for the state calculating the cost per student. So they'll be in there. None of the capital expenditures, the buildings and things like that, are included. Only the debt service. So it's in the state statistics.
So what comes out of the reserve accounts is in the state statistics?
Yes.
Okay.
As both a revenue source and a use of funds.
All right.
Any other questions?
I have a question on procedure. When we discuss the bond for the new school, when we get to that, do we discuss it? And then do we discuss each one of these bonds? I mean, these warrant articles?
Yes, because we're going to take a vote on them. As far as discussing, obviously, we've discussed a lot of them already, but yes, we can discuss them.
There'll be opportunity to discuss each one.
Yes. Okay. So Steve, where are we now?
Unless there's anything the board wants to share or other questions, in my presentation, we do have, again, the entire general fund budget here, this document. If there's anything else Tom wants to share.
Those are just a summary of the reports that we've seen going all along, from the 82-pager down to, was it 8 pages?
Yeah,
and that is the way it typically appears in our annual reports.
And these are the most revised figures.
Yes.
This is what, remember that school board meeting you came to?
Yes.
This is the outcome of that. Yeah, but I don't think everybody, it may be new that the, right, for the full budget committee.
Yeah, we have copies if you'd like this.
Was at that.
They're right with this.
We got it.
And the summary supports the warrant article.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to go over with those changes so they understand or not, so it's
And I think it would be helpful just to highlight the changes.
what happened, what was, yeah, so. Well, at the last, so from the last time we presented to the budget committee, the sort of final number was tweaked, remember? So we added in more money for special education, tuition, placement.
That was in the last meeting, that was there, in the last set of reports.
Right, it was in the last set of reports for us, but I don't think it was the same for, you think it was? Oh,
The
okay.
summary sheet.
Okay, my apologies then. I guess then I'll defer to you guys for questions you have, but.
Better to ask the question twice than not at all, so.
I can tell you one major difference is we did some moving, we put more money into the special ed tuition. The price we had to, because some things changed. And we took out, I think at one point, the biggest change, we were gonna fund a full-time social worker.
Yeah.
And that would be a split between IDA funding and general fund. We took that out. And we were gonna add to teacher ed, we took that out of the general fund budget as well. And,
So that position, yeah.
yeah, the increase was about the same in dollars, but it shifted because we, again, got another bill.
And the figures you have in there obviously reflect your best guess looking forward at what you think our actual expectations are.
Yeah, and I think we, and it's, so you know, because we have $450,000 in the budget to cover special tuition next year and that if everything stays as it is right now, that's not enough. However, we do have $150,000 sitting in the capital fund, provided we don't have to access that this year. And we're going to do everything we can to not let that happen. I think we'll be okay, but I can't predict that. So the bottom line is we've covered, between the capital fund and what we put in the general fund, we've covered the anticipated cost of tuition next year, assuming we don't get more. That's the best we can do, at least cover what we know we have. And I think to not cover what we know we have and hope for the best is irresponsible.
Steve, so in the educationally disabled capital reserve fund, I think there's $155,000 in there. So none of that has been tapped into at this point.
That's correct, Diane. It's intact.
And you hope to execute this year without having to.
That's what we're going.
That's the plan. Okay. Okay, so which would we like to address next, or first?
Which warrant article?
Yes. If everybody's satisfied on the...
Just take them in order. Just take them in order, the way they're going.
Okay. So, the budget, which we were just, yes, go ahead, Diane.
Well, if this is still for the proposed budget, I think the $6,000 for the field maintenance, I believe we should inform the school board, and I'm sure they already know, that we voted as a budget committee to have them pay the back pay and going forward. It's $6,000, and it may not seem like much, but it is taxpayers' money. And through the history of that line item, it has said in the past a transfer to the rec department. It was at $2,000, and then it was increased to $6,000. And the rec department continues to do that service. I just think that the taxpayers would like to pay them for their service, and it's really not connected to anything else. So I'm not sure how we want to address this. I know that the budget committee voted to in favor of having that paid. But going forward, do we want to reduce the school budget by $6,000 and put it into the town budget? Is there any discussion from budget committee members?
Yeah. And I guess, has there been any progress on the memorandum of understanding discussions that related to this?
We've had 2 meetings and we presented a MOU for field use, and then also, which is the $6,000 one, and also we presented the MOU data, I think it was for somehow, but we haven't, the school hasn't had submitted a response yet.
We have another meeting scheduled for January 31st.
We've met twice.
Okay.
At 1 o'clock.
Okay, but to this point right now, what are the outstanding bills that haven't been paid? How many years are we talking?
I show 2 years, $12,000 total.
Okay, for 2017 and 2018?
That's what that's what the committee voted, was it 2 years, 6 a
Okay,
year.
and those are calendar years?
Yeah, for the town,
Town, yes, okay, they're not the school fiscal years. Okay, so anyway, so the budget committee has voted, and, I mean, so to the extent of our, so Diane, you're asking is whether or not we would take it a step beyond that and deduct $6,000 from this current proposed budget and reallocate that $6,000 to the town budget, and particularly the Parks Department.
It seems cleaner.
Yeah.
A cleaner way of actually for the taxpayers to pay the department that actually does the work.
I agree with you in principle. I think it'd be nice if we could take this off the line and get this settled between the town manager and the school.
But it's probably time that
I
it
don't
be
think it
done.
would be amended.
It's time for it to be done. But
Steve,
I
can I
agree
just
with that.
ask,
We can get it off.
I didn't know about your vote.
Yeah.
So where are the minutes for your meeting so I can read them online, or where do you post those? Because I'm sorry, I just didn't know that. So where do I find that information?
I will send that to you. Heather Porter takes our minutes, and I will
Okay.
send that to you, Leslie.
That would
I'll
be,
send it to the whole
I think
board.
that if there's something like that, it might be good to send it out. Honestly, I had no idea about that, so
Okay.
my apologies, but I'm not sure how to access those minutes. It's been, I've looked on the town website in the past, but I don't see them.
Yeah.
So,
The committee's understanding is the bills have been sent and they have gone unpaid. So it'd be nice if we just get them paid and move on here.
Yeah, regardless of what's gonna happen with the MOU, it'd probably be nice to clear the slate up till now.
Correct.
Is that the sentiment, if I'm not?
It's,
Yeah, because if we
to
lower
clear
that,
it right up, and maybe it is just a cleaner transaction to just pay the town for their service through their own budget.
The town is carrying those as an account receivable.
Yes, they're carried as accounts receivable right now. As we got closer to the end of this school year, their school budget, my thoughts after hearing some of the recommendations from the budget committee was to approach the selectmen during a selectmen's meeting and ask them if I could deduct that from the last payment to the school if we had not received it by then.
y'all, excuse me, this is minutia. This is $6,000, $12,000, and on a $16 million budget. Why can't the school board pay the invoice? I don't care for an answer right now. I say we move on. I support what Diane says 100%. This is minutia. Take care of it, guys. This is enough. We've discussed it more than we have a $16 million budget, which is my next question,
Yes.
Steve.
Yeah.
When should I'd like to make some comments about the budget. Would you like me to do it now or when we do the warrant?
Can we say if we're gonna just push this off on the town manager and the superintendent or whoever's gonna handle that? Somewhere we need to close it.
That's right. Close it.
What are we gonna do to close it? Is it gonna
I
come
make a
between two
motion that
people or is it
we-
gonna be taken care of?
Go ahead, Diane.
I would make a motion that we ask the school board to reduce their budget, proposed budget by $6,000, and that the town, for the town to put $6,000 in their budget. I think it's just a cleaner transaction.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Mel. Is there discussion on that motion? Ralph?
Is it binding?
No.
Is it binding on both? It's not, it's just a recommendation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Be nice if you just pay the bill.
Yeah, just
We
pay
move
the
on.
bill. Well, if we reduce the school budget by 6,
Yeah.
they're still owed 12 at the moment.
Yeah, that's,
So if anything, we should be increasing the school budget so that they can do 12 hours. If we want to get into math here at all. But I think the understanding is that we just want to.
I have a question for clarity, may I?
yes, Ralph?
I don't know whether we asked Ann or Steve, why has it not been paid? And you don't have to give me more than 2-minute question, 2-minute answer really. Why has it not been paid?
Because we've been looking at the Parks and Rec, and we also pay one of our people to maintain the stripes on the grounds, and we have to pay him a salary. So we've had to look at the whole ball of wax, and we haven't come to a conclusion yet. We're still working on it.
For 2 years.
Well, actually, it just started this year.
I don't think the school has
We
ever
attempted it a long
been
time
given a
ago.
clear definition of what the $6,000 actually covers in writing. And secondly, it was a handshake agreement from 2007. It was never put together in an MOU with an understanding. So we're in the discussion because Parks and Rec uses our facilities for their programs. And currently the school does. In my personal opinion, Mel, it should be $0 from both
Well, let me
town
make a
and
point
school.
here that when the Moore Dam overpaid their taxes by $6 million, the town repaid the $6 million. $4 million of that $6 million went to the school. The school did not have to pay that back. And I would think to pay $12,000 in exchange for the $4,000 the town paid to repay that $4 million is quite a deal.
The amounts are encumbered, just as Karen's showing them as receivables, I'm showing them both as encumbrances.
Okay. Well, we would prefer not to be discussing this next year.
Yes.
Okay. So anyway, we have a motion made by Diane and seconded by Mel. Okay, there's no further discussion. I would like to take a vote on.
Can you repeat the motion again, please?
Diane, would you, or Heather, do you have the ability to?
To reduce the school budget by $6,000 in the field maintenance line, and to increase the town budget by $6,000 to pay the rec department for their service.
That's starting this next year,
Yes.
and then carrying all through after that.
Well,
Every year.
well, it deals with this budget.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's still not gonna solve this in the future, solve this issue. It's only gonna solve it for 1 year, the upcoming budget.
Yes, sir. More than anything else, Ralph, it would be at least taking a position and sending a message. I think we've all been frustrated by the fact that this has been lingering for as long as it has, so.
I think they understand that position.
Okay.
Thanks.
Anyway, okay, so we have a motion made and seconded and discussed. All those in favor of Diane's motion, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay.
Nah.
Okay.
Okay.
We have two for and 4 against.
All right.
Okay, but point well made and point taken.
We'll get it figured out.
Yeah, okay.
Message received.
Okay, so are we ready to move to the warrant articles, of which I take it, Diane, Steve, there are 4?
Steve, I got a question. Would you prefer my comments now, I would come to the budget, or when we get to the warrant?
I think when we get to the warrant article that... So is it 4 warrants?
Yes.
Okay, the first of which has to do with Greenwood property. Okay? Do you want to read that, or?
I can certainly do that.
Yeah.
See, the school district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $900,000 gross budget for the acquisition of land, architectural and engineering services for a future elementary school project, and to authorize the issuance of not more than $900,000 of bonds or notes in accordance with the provisions of the Municipal Finance Act, RSA 33, and to authorize municipal officials to issue and negotiate such bonds or notes, and to determine the rate of interest thereon, and to authorize the use of up to $150,000 of surplus available at June 30th, 2019 to reduce the amount borrowed. I can take a breath. We got a semicolon there. And further, to appropriate the sum of $196,519 for the first year's interest and principal payments. Recommendations require 3/5 ballot vote required.
Okay. Ed?
So if things work out the way you would like, you're only gonna borrow $750, is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
So,
But I want to stress.
No, I understand you.
We come full disclosure here. We just talked about, we're protecting the capital
right,
fund for the special ed. This year's budget is super tight.
right. So, the next thing, to further appropriate the sum of, shouldn't it be up to? Because if you only borrow $750, you're not gonna pay
No, I
$196.
have to appropriate the entire amount or I can't
Well,
borrow
can you
it.
say up to?
No, Department of Revenue does not like up-tos in an
Yeah,
appropriation.
I would like that language better too, but we can't do that. And I agree.
Oh,
It makes
say not
sense
more
that-
than, okay.
So the not more than authorization to borrow not more
So
than
can't you say-
actually covers it.
Then you can't
But I
say-
have to appropriate the whole 900. If I
Can't you
don't
say
have the fund balance, I
appropriate
can't
not
borrow
more
it.
than 196?
No, they don't like,
Really? Okay.
not up-tos.
Even though you're not gonna, you may not end up paying that.
I hope I don't.
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, I'm fine.
The trouble is if I don't have the fund balance, then if I've not appropriated the whole 900,
No, I understand,
I
that's
can't
just the language.
and that's also why the 196.5 is as high, because that's on the assumption
900.
that we're borrowing the full 900 over 5 years.
Okay. Any further questions or discussion on the motion? Diane, is that all okay or clear with you?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay, we call for a vote. All those in favor, so we're gonna call this Article 1.
I think it has to be the
It's
first
actually
one on
Article- it's
our.
actually Article
It would be
2.
Article 2, because I think you have election of officers first.
Okay, so this will be, very well, so let's call it Article 2, so okay, so all those in favor of supporting Article 2 is just read by Steve, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Diane, was that an aye?
Yes, it is an aye, yes.
Thank you, so it's supported 6-0. Okay, so then there's these,
You got 7, I think. 7, because Jim.
oh, sorry. Sorry about that, Jim. I stand, I stand corrected, so sorry, okay.
Sorry, Jim.
Okay, only Michael Stevens is missing, so, okay. Very good, sorry about that, Jim. As they say, Jim, better late than never.
I'm assuming it was Jim you were forgetting.
Yeah, yes, it was. I knew it wasn't I knew it wasn't myself. No, it was Jimmy. Okay, it was easy to look at. Okay, all right, well, thank you for that. Okay, so then the school district budget is Article 3, which is what we have just recently been brought up to date on. So, Mel, now would be time for,
You want to read it first?
I'll read it.
well, sorry, yes.
If you wish, okay.
Yeah.
Shall the Littleton School District raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with a warrant or as amended by a vote of the first session for the purposes set forth therein totaling $16,475,140. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $16,335,130, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous action of the Littleton School District or by law. Or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 4013, 10, and 16, remember those, Roman numerals, to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only.
Okay.
Mel?
A question, do we, Andrew talked about putting the words up to. Can we offer amendments to this, or recommended amendments, or we just, how does that work?
The language on Article 2 is recommended by the Department of Revenue and Council. The language on Article 3 is required.
Gotcha.
The language on Article 4 is also required.
As many of you know, I've done a study on the cost of schools. And there are 91 or so SAUs in the state. And of those 91, by statistical analysis, there are 6 similar other SAUs like ours, including the percent of students in special education, even in the salaries ranges of our teachers, the number of student ratio to teachers. So all of these 6 identified SAUs are in my study. And the study shows, and I think everybody in this room has that 17-page report, shows that the average for all the 7 SAUs, including us, our budget is $629,000 more than the average. Now, what I'm asking is, do those 6 other superintendents, do those 6 other chairs of school boards with 30 other members, do those 6 other business managers, and do those 13 other principals and 9 or 7 assistant principals, plus all the voters in those 6 other districts, are they wrong, or do we have it wrong? So I'm thinking, and so why I did this study is, for so long we've heard we feel or I think. So just statistically, I took all that out. And so for that reason, I cannot support this Article 3. If I did, or if I'm allowed to make a recommendation, I would say that Article 3, the total on the 4th line, would be $16,125,000. That is a $350,000 reduction. That's about half where we are. So what that means is, if you have the mean of all the SAUs here, and you have the upper part and the lower part, we're halfway between the mean and the upper 1 standard deviation. So if I'm allowed, I don't think I can just recommend that amount be $16,125,000. But the way it is written now, I cannot support it. We have asked this question for years and years, and we've never addressed it statistically. It's not how I feel, it's not how I think. Statistics say that. And I can say this too, that we have a great school administration. We have the best superintendent I think we've had since I've been here. I've been here 17 years. I'm very much impressed with the departments and what they've given us as how they proceed each year and the success they've had. But statistically, all the other schools, I would say, have done the same thing. And I'm just proud of both of them. But we have to be ready to prepare our budgets for what will be coming, perhaps a $20 million or more school. So we have to start being less feeling and more business-like when it comes to what our taxpayers can hold. Right now, this cut that I'm talking about would help prepare us to put money aside for this new school should it come about. So I again reiterate, I cannot support the budget at this amount. If I can amend it, I would suggest $16,125,000. And thank you all very much for your hard work.
Mel, would you, just since we have reporters here and the camera, would you list the 6 districts that you used as your main comparison, just so we have that? So for people at home who don't have the report, have that information. And
on that, regardless, would you give permission for either we can post this report online so people can go to it? But I would like to, if that's available, if that is allowed, I'd like to put it online, either the town or the school. But to answer your question, the schools involved or Middleton, Hinsdale, Pittsfield, Haverhill, us, Hopkinton, and Empey. And I believe more than I think everybody in this room, who doesn't have a copy of this book? I think everybody has a copy. All right, I've got, but,
you have extra copies?
I can get, I can send it to you electronically. So, for follow up, I would be glad to send you the PDF form version to post it so that people can look at it.
Yeah, I guess I would say we have to discuss it at a board meeting, but I don't know that we're gonna wanna do that. That's my initial response.
Well, this is something that we all know has been going on. This has been going on for almost 2 months.
And not that I know you've worked really hard on it, Mel, and I've read it, and I've looked at some of the districts, and, and I'm looking at other information related to those districts and the programs that they offer. It's a little tricky to pull all that out, what's actually happening in the districts. But I just wanted people to understand who you were talking about as you made that. I think that's fair as you make that recommendation.
And my statistics came from the Department of Education, also from information from the SAU. The way the Department of Education does, so we were comparing apples and apples. We all say SAUs are so complicated you can't compare them. Well, this report may not be apples and apples, but it's a Granny Smith, the Red Delicious. And I spoke with Caitlin Davis, who's head of all the data, and I said, can you actually compare SAUs based upon your data? She said yes, because only those items that are reported by every school is put in the data, and that's what this has. Debt service, transportation, food service, they're all different. So like line items are in this data that I've used.
So there's some other things that may not be considered in there, such as performance and how well the students are doing.
Well, that's
based on the amount of money that we're spending on the students.
Very interesting.
I respect what you're doing, but dropping the operating budget at this point in the game, I would want the school officials and the board to sit down and maybe go through what you've done, and maybe next year look at how things line up.
Sure.
But there's the whole performance side of things, and how well our students are doing.
Well, that's a question I asked too, because not that there's a correlation between teacher salaries and performance, because we're in the upper quartile of teacher salaries, which, by the way, does not affect our statistics, but we're in the lower quartile when it comes to performance. This budget, 2017, was proposed a $600,000 cut in 2016. So that groundwork has already been set. $300,000 was cut last year, so that's groundwork has been set. So the foundation for all I've done, has been set, it's been discussed. So I don't feel like it needs to be postponed any longer.
Okay.
Mel, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
What about special education costs for those other districts?
Right. Special education class. We always thought that we had more special education class, percent of enrollment than everybody else. The 6 other SAUs were all the same. I think we have 18.9 and the average is 18.6. So we're right there with the median. So we are no different than other SAUs our size. The criteria for these SAUs there were 2. K through 12. Out of 91 SAUs, not all have K through 12. Some have only high school, some have only elementary or middle school, but few have like we. So out of the 91, there were 20 that had K through 12. But then the next criteria was enrollment. So by statistical analysis, we came up with the enrollment. So that's why we have 6 schools like we have. Now, we're the only school SAU that has a vocational training center. That was pulled out totally from this week because we're not alike.
So revenue from that would be pulled out then? too?
Revenue was not, and the cost.
Okay.
All that was pulled
The
out.
operating costs too?
Operating costs?
That was pulled out.
Okay.
That's interesting, how they do that, how do they do that for our
That's what I'm
district?
wondering.
They take the teacher salaries out because they teach other
Well,
classes.
y'all, let me tell you something.
No,
I don't mind answering questions, but this has been out, I've been given, as I progressed in this journey, and let me tell you something, guys, I don't hold a curve on the brains. So I'm open for suggestions, but I think the time for discussion is over. That's why I didn't suggest we cut it by $629,000. I said $300,000, $350,000. It was cut $300,000 last year. But that was cut at the deliberative session. I've been trying to get everybody enough time to digest this. And $300,000 is not, $350,000 is not a big cut when you're looking at a $16 million budget. Yes, ma'am.
I mentioned special ed students. What I really want to know is how many out-of-district students do those facilities pay for?
Don't know. Now,
See, we have 450,000.
and I would say that statistically, we're going to find the same thing with it. But there's nothing that says we can't continue to investigate. But by postponing, we're, in my opinion, are endangering the success of a $20 million bond down the road. If we continue what we're doing, what's happening is that the budget's now called for, this is an approximate figure, about $400 a year the average family would have to pay. We cut the budget, and that $400 is books for school, for college, a summer vacation, a Santa Claus. It's a lot of things that families can have. And we have to start thinking more with how we run the budget. Heretofore, we have thought about, I hate to say it, guys, but, and I don't mean to be insulting, because I've been part of this for 17 years. I have a perfect record. I voted for every single warrant article, every single budget since I've been in town. But our budget is not an operating budget. It's a political budget. And why do I say that? Because if you look at all the employees in the school, and if we drew a family tree, we'd all be kin to somebody who has a job there. It's okay to cut the budget, but don't cut Susie Q's because she's my daughter-in-law. Or don't cut the budget, you can do that, but don't cut so-and-so because that's how I get my insurance. So we have to step back and understand what we can do for the future of the people who are not sitting here, that's our students. As long as we look at this from that standpoint as a political budget, instead of an operating budget, we will endanger the future welfare, in my opinion, and education of them. And that's why I didn't go with $629,000. I said, let's just do what we did last year. And now I'm on that. Sorry, I'm on a soapbox here.
Go for it.
So, Mel,
Yes, Diane. Diane, go ahead.
I'm sorry, if I understand the report correctly, you took out all the special education cost. And you also took out the classroom teachers cost. And you came up with, 47 positions that are non-teaching positions, correct?
Diana, are you speaking to the 47 non-teaching positions?
Correct.
Yeah. In the report...
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Mel.
In the report, I think it's Exhibit E, and they show 47 non-teaching positions. Those 47 positions, a total of approximately 62,000 hours a year. 62,000 hours of year in work. I don't quite think that there's 62,000 hours of work for all that group. And I mentioned this the very first time we met in November, to look at the jobs to see what they have to be done. The board here sitting across from me has the knowledge to do it. We don't need consultants. We just have to understand this is operating budget. And there are several ways that this money can come out of the budget. And the 3 ways I suggested. One is the CTC, right now, our vocational center, is costing our Littleton students, because they were going to add back that in, a Littleton student costs $26,000. It's all in here, guys. And looking at that, 1/3 of this $350 can come out of that amount. It's not much. If you're running a business, a lot more would come out. Then 1/3 would come out of the 47 positions that are non-teaching. Then about 1/3 would come out of the $6 or $7 million of teaching salaries. Now the 47 non-teaching salaries people, that's about $4.3 million. But we have about $1 million a month in payroll from this little town. So we have some room, folks. We have room. But we have to do it now. We can't postpone it. We've been doing it for the last several years. So let's just stick to our guns and continue that. Any other questions? I'm speaking loud to the audience, guys. I'm not fussing.
No, this is all, I think we're all agreed that this was very good work, Mel, and this is a lot to absorb and really sit back and look at what we can and cannot do. And I know I appreciate what you did and the work that went into it. And you're right, we have had it for a little while, and we have been discussing it, and we've been talking about it and taking it all into consideration. So thank you for doing that.
So, Millie.
Diane, just one second, Diane, okay? Ralph?
I had a couple of questions. On special education, I guess I still don't understand the cost of special education and why the schools that are responsible for sending somebody out 24/7 away from school. We want to teach them, our teachers aren't teaching them, and we're paying for all that money, and I guess it's because the state says we got to do it. But the governor was here yesterday, and some of us had a chance to meet with the governor. And the governor says they got $10 million in special education money down in Concord that nobody's applied for. So if special education in Littleton is such a big issue, why hasn't the board gone after some of that $10 million?
Let me explain that. The $10 million, the great question, Ralph. The $10 million is sitting there is dollars that were unspent by the SAUs around the state of their allocation. So every year, the state gets funding from the feds, and then they parcel it out to the district based on the number of students and other factors. For whatever reason, there were some schools that didn't spend their allocation. We spent within, what, $30?
30 cents.
30 cents, okay. Yeah. We spent all the 30 cents of ours, excuse me, I'm glad. So we did spend it. We did spend a great, but that $10 million is going to be available, apparently, and I heard this from the commissioner a week ago. We heard it again from the governor yesterday. They're figuring out how to reallocate that back to the district. If they reallocate it back based on a pure formula, that won't be a huge number. But they do something different, it could be helpful. But that's another one of those that, we just don't know about either.
And we have to reapply for that too.
Yeah, and that's what the governor was saying yesterday, and Crystal, you were talking to him directly. He said, what I heard, where I was standing, was that apply for it. He pointed right at you guys, said apply for it, because if I can't spend it, I'm not gonna get it next year.
But he also followed that up with he wasn't exactly sure of the formula or the process.
Right, you're still working on that, so we can reapply for it, but we might not know anything for another 6 months, what they're gonna do with it.
Because the commissioner, we did it, I know the superintendent last week did implore the commissioner to make it available for this fiscal year.
So if you apply for that and you get it for this fiscal year, how's that gonna affect this budget?
It won't affect the 1920 budget.
You're talking about getting it for the 18-19 budget.
If he gets it for the 18-19 budget.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about, the upcoming budget.
No, that's the one we're in.
I'm talking about the upcoming budget. If you get it this year, after we vote.
If I get it in 18-19.
Yeah. Okay, that starts in June, right? So if you get it before
No,
June or
we're in,
July.
we're in it, Ralph. The one we're in,
I know,
18,
but if
19.
you get the money before July, does it affect the budget we're in now?
It affects the budget we're in now.
But it won't affect next year's budget. So go after the whole $10 million and spend $1 million a year.
I love it.
Yeah, and I guess hopefully, if they allocate it, they would allocate it on the basis of districts that really needed to use it, not giving it to everybody equally, because, I mean, it should go to those who actually have a need for it, not as excess revenue because of...
I think $500,000
what you hope. You would
is
hope.
a district. I think we got a district that needs it if we're spending over
That's right.
$500,000.
Yeah, I want to get back to
kids.
Diane. Diane, sorry, if you could come back in. You had a question?
I was just wondering if the, with the report and everything, it's a good analysis. Mel wants more than just, it's good work, thank you for doing it. Is there a commitment from the school board and the SAU office to look at this and study it more?
I'm sorry, I thought I indicated that that's what we were doing.
Well, I think
Okay.
Diane's asking, is the board taking a position as a board on this, not just you individually?
We're still studying all those things.
Okay, but that's Diane's question though, right, Diane? You'd like to know whether the school board either has or is in a position to take a position, if you would, being redundant here, take a position on the future study of Mel's work.
Correct.
Okay.
I just wanted to say quickly that, again, I appreciate your work too. I think it raises really good questions. It was informative, but so is all of this information too. And I feel like more than ever before, these two committees have spent a lot more time talking and sharing information, which is a really good thing. And I think we can help each other. One, we're better understanding what's going on with your budgeting, how it works, what affects it, what things are under your control, what isn't. It's been hugely helpful. But for one, my personal feeling is I don't feel comfortable making that drastic of a recommendation based upon, I feel like we're not in their shoes every single day. And I feel there's a bunch of honest people here who are doing the best job they can with everything, and I don't feel comfortable making that drastic of a recommendation, not having worked on every little thing all year long, and understanding fully which numbers are really accurate and which ones aren't. And it's not because we're trying to make fake numbers, it might just be because you don't understand how the numbers come together. But I do agree that in the next 3 to 5, we've got to figure something out to deal with some of the long-term concerns of needing a school. What if the damn taxes go away someday? Maybe we can continue this in a very productive way, because I like it. I like what we're hearing, but here we are at budget. We got to make a decision. So.
Yeah, and Mel, and I want to respond, just for myself personally. We did get your final report, and we kind of got it in the heat of the budget season. So there really is a lot we're working on. I know it may not seem like that, but it is quite,
it's a lot.
It really is quite time consuming. And so to go through and research each district, and try to really put it all together and look at their results, their data results, and all the different pieces of this, I personally intend to do that, and I really haven't had a chance to do that yet. And it's just basically over the holidays and my family commitments, there is a limit to how much time you can put into being on the school board, but it is pretty intensive. So I just want you to know that I intend to do that fully, to really, really go over this, and we obviously will discuss it, but we're presenting our budget as what we really feel we need to have for this district, right. And we stand by it, at least I believe. So that's where we are. So.
Go ahead, Diane.
I guess my question was, can we go forward in thinking that we will come back to this report and really study it together as some kind of committee work. I do understand what you're saying about, going through the budget process. It's really time consuming. It's overwhelming. It's just so overwhelming. So I understand that you cannot have a commitment for a reduction for the proposed budget, but I think going forward, if we could sit down and leisurely go through this report, it would be helpful for everyone so we all understand it much better. So I was hoping that the school board could discuss at some point in the very near future whether or not a committee or a subcommittee could be formed to study this.
Obviously, Mel, I want to thank you for your work. I mean, for many years, and, I felt that, and this is not exclusive to the school, but I mean, that anytime there was an issue that's come up, be it on town side or school side, or the state for that matter, that the answer always was more people and more money instead of reallocation of resources. I have a much better feeling for the school operation now than I ever have. I think certainly Steve has brought leadership to this that we have not always had. The presentations we had from our principals obviously resounded well with all of us. And like Heather, I certainly like to think that our dialogue, the level of our dialogue is improving and will be productive. I mean, the school board, I would hope, would look at the budget committee as a resource and not as an enemy or an adversary. That has not always been the case, and to tell things as it is, or as they are, our relationship over the years with the select board generally has been much more productive. Having said that, I have high hopes for our relationship moving forward with the school board, and I think certainly in terms of selling the $20 million bond, if you want to, that obviously the budget committee certainly supported in principle. We would like to be part of that and moving forward and be a driving force behind it. Having said that, any fiscal insight that we can demonstrate will enhance the chances of success significantly. So I'm all in favor of Mel's proposal. And again, I'm speaking personally, this is nothing that the budget committee has voted on or whatever, but it has been discussed amongst different groups of us to some degree. I think it's a lot to throw in at this particular point in time. The challenges that Steve has outlined, I think that I personally feel that the budget as it stands right now is fiscally responsible, and I think that, personally, I think it's something that we should be supporting. But having said that, and I think echoing Diane's thoughts, I don't want to get past today or past the deliberative session or past voting day and then just forget about this, because if we just forget about it and it just comes up again a year from now, that's not going to be productive for anybody. I think and I would be, not that we're going to have to decide it today, but if we could set up a subcommittee, 2 school board members, a couple of budget committee members, a couple of teachers or administration, a couple of people from the town, not trying to get it too big, but something like 8 people or something, and ask them, as Ralph's committee did, working on the elementary school. Obviously we're talking a big commitment, but to work.
Representation of both interests and really coming to a cohesive place.
That's right.
I think it's a really smart thing to do.
Yeah. I mean, we want Littleton school system to be one of the best in the state. We want it to be safe, we want it to be nurturing, and we also want it to be productive. I don't think there's no secret.
We're on the same page there.
Yeah, that's right. There's no secret agendas here. But when, a lot of what we've said over the years, like Mel said, well, I think, it feels like, it looks like, whatever. Well, when you get it down to dollars and cents, it does at least get your attention that obviously these other 6 communities can't be doing everything wrong, we're the only one doing something right. I mean, that there's stuff that we need to look at inside to see if we can do something better. And we're not trying to lessen the quality of anything, we're actually trying to enhance it. And I guess that's enough of my pontificating, but that's my feeling. So I guess at this point in time, we're discussing what will be Article 3, support of the school district's proposed budget as presented. Mel, you made a suggestion, you didn't make it as a motion. You can make it as a motion, would require a second.
I didn't realize, so I can make a motion that the total on line 4 be $16,125,000? I don't believe so.
Well, it's the school's budget. I mean, it's their budget, not our, we're
And this is just going to be advisory, Ed, just as it
I
would.
recorded his statement.
So that's why I didn't know quite what the procedure was.
Well, I mean,
Well, it can be done at the deliberative session though, right?
correct.
yeah,
Can be done?
Yeah.
at the
We
deliberative
just vote,
session.
we just vote whether we approve, like we've all voted for the bond for this, for the.
yeah, that's right.
property.
Okay,
So
but,
this is just a vote.
but Mel, if you want to make it as a motion, I will ask for a second, and then we'll have discussion, we'll have a vote.
I don't mind doing that, I don't know.
No, I'm just asking if you want to, if not,
I mean, I'll vote against this unless it's amended, but.
okay. Other than that, if you're not going to make a motion, then I'm going to ask for a vote on the school budget as proposed.
Well, I'll make a motion that the town budget committee recommend that the school budget be $16,125,000.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. Motion made by Mel, seconded by Ralph. Is there any discussion on that motion?
I don't think we can do it. It's the school's
It's
budget.
just a recommendation.
Because it's still gonna say
But then we're still gonna have to vote on it.
16,475 on our ballot until deliberative session. What you're voting on is either yea or nay.
That's
You want to support that amount,
That's what
not
confuses me.
16.
Yeah, that's right. And this is,
And you could have it in your minutes.
That's right. This is-
Right? That's what you're going for.
this is only advisory, only sending a message if there's a message to be sent. Okay?
You
So-
can make a motion that I recorded, and I already did.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so the motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay. All those in favor of Mel's motion to the school board to reduce the budget to $16,125,000, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
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 Can I have a hands vote on the nays, please? Okay, so there's six against and 1 in favor. Okay, so the motion is defeated, 6-1. Okay, is there any further discussion on the school district budget as presented at $16,335,130?
I gotta make another comment. Sorry. For the last 2 years, I've been harping on the teacher count because Littleton's teacher to student ratio is in the top 10 percentile of the state. It's in the top 10 percentile of the United States of America. We have, according to his analysis there, we have the highest paid teachers out of those 6 schools. We're looking at having the highest paid teachers. And my question is, since last voting, have any teachers been reduced?
Yes, one position.
One position has gone since the last time?
Yeah, Ralph, the reduction in the budget last year resulted in 1 teacher reduction and 3 paraprofessional reductions.
Was that a classroom teacher?
Yes, it was.
Wasn't that the year before?
No, that was.
That was what, I mean, in the current year, we're 1 teacher less than we were a year ago.
That was a result of the deliberative session cut.
Correct. Now, full disclosure, this gets real murky here because there's different funds. So I'm saying general fund. We did bring in a program, but we talked a little bit about last year during the delivery session about reallocation of funds and looking at how to use resources differently, which I was happy to hear that with some of the language tonight, using resources we have differently. And out of that was born the Bowden Notch Community School. And so we took resources that were already in the general fund budget, we combined them with grant resources and created that program. So
Utilizing the same teachers.
So if you look at head count, regardless of how they're funded, we reduced one classroom teacher in our, I guess you'd call it day school, and we added a person to the night school part of our program, which became Above the Notch.
But that was a new person or an existing?
It was a new person. It was a new person.
Okay, so you're not same numbers last year still?
Yeah, if you look at it in pure head count, the numbers, at least in terms of teachers or related staff, is the same. Paraprofessionals are fewer. If you look at it in terms of how it affects the general fund, there's a reduction of a teacher. We're paying, in other words, we're paying one fewer teachers out of the general fund than we were a year ago.
And how's that affect the teacher to student ratio?
The action we did last year, we changed it slightly. I mean, again, because the Above the Notch Community School isn't figured in the student-teacher ratio because that's an adult ed program. That's a whole different program, actually. But the reduction of the one classroom teacher would have a very slight change. We also have a slight drop in the student population. So, both sides of the ratio have changed a little bit.
Yeah, and
so I would say basically to answer your question, very little. A slight drop, but very little.
Made very little difference.
Yep, very little.
Therefore, it's just, I've been harping on this for the last couple of years that we need to, I think you need to take a look at your teacher head count and start reducing teachers gradually over the years.
Yeah.
And because of that, I don't believe I can vote for this because if we go with the default, I think that's going to, you're gonna have to take a look at a teacher or something in there. Somewhere, you're gonna have to look at something. But unless we start seeing a reduction in teachers, because we are in the top 10 percentile of the nation for teacher to student ratio, I think we need to start making those reductions somewhere. And therefore, I can't really vote in my conscience for this budget for the proposed, because the teacher reductions just aren't in there.
Any other discussion? Diane, any further questions?
No, but if after the vote we could come back and see if the school board will talk about establishing a committee. I mean, we didn't really hear anything back from them about that.
Okay, I will ask that question after. Okay, so right now, I would ask somebody to make a motion that we support Article 3, the Littleton School District budget at $16,335,130. Do I have a motion?
$16,475.
No, this is the first one, the 150, right? No, we got.
Oh, sorry.
Turn it down, you're right.
Sorry.
You're right,
Yeah.
you turn it down.
Thank you much, Tom. Yeah, sorry. $16,475,140.
So moved.
May I have a second, please? Mike. Okay, so made by Ed and seconded by Heather. Any further discussion? All those in favor of supporting Article 3 as presented, please say aye.
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 All those opposed?
No.
Okay, so we would have
5-2.
5 in favor, 2 against. Okay. Is the teacher's contract, that's going to be 4, which we've already voted on previously, but we'll put a number down anyway so we know what that is. And Article 5 is, you want to put something in place?
I don't know if you wish to weigh in on that or not.
Okay.
That's a housekeeping article. If the CBA is defeated, then we're allowed to come back and do it again without going through Superior Court.
Okay.
You want a motion? You want to vote on it?
Well, if you feel...
Otherwise,
I'll make a
it goes
motion.
against,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I'll move it.
Okay, so a motion made by Ed to support Article 5, a second, made by Jimmy. Discussion on Article 5?
Is that really the third one down?
It's the fourth one down. So Article 5 says that if Article 4 is defeated, that the special meeting can be held during the summer to address it and another voting day. Right, it would involve a deliberative session and a voting day.
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor of Article 5, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? I think it's 5-0. There's nobody voted against it, but Ralph and Mel did not vote, is that correct?
I did.
You did?
It was unanimous.
Yeah, oh, okay, sorry. Okay.
7-0.
Okay, so it's 7-0 in favor of Article 5. Okay. Okay, and to address Diane's point, I guess, how you, would you acknowledge the acceptance of a recommendation for a subcommittee to review Mel's study and to come forward with a recommendation or a strategy for, I guess, first to analyze it and then to come forth with a recommendation on to what degree things might be implemented?
Just a point of procedure here.
Yes.
Do we need to ask the full budget committee if they would like to establish a committee? Do we have to do that so we can make a recommendation?
Yeah, good point, Diane, yes. What would the sentiment be of the budget committee with regards to recommending a subcommittee to address and study Mel's research and how it may be implemented in the Littleton school system?
I think the school board is favoring that suggestion.
Okay.
So I'm not sure that you really need to vote. But we will have a diverse committee
Yeah.
again.
Right, I mean, I think,
It would be great if we could talk about it at a school board
Yes.
meeting. So we could get it on the agenda, over the next
Mm-hmm.
couple weeks and have a discussion about it with the full board present. That would be super helpful to me at least, so we can
Okay.
have a chance to discuss it in session. So,
Done.
with all of us present, because we can't do that unless we're in a school board meeting, so. That would be.
So would the school board take the lead on that?
Yes,
to
I think
form a
we would
committee?
talk about the report and then, yes, that's.
Put a committee together, okay.
Yeah.
I think it would be wise, though, to also have the budget committee voice their opinion,
Nice.
or, at least have a consensus.
okay. Jimmy?
Couldn't, as budget committee members, couldn't we just attend the school board meetings?
Yes, sure, anyone.
And provide
The
input.
public is always
Here's
welcome.
Here's my thought.
You'd like that.
If we're appointed, so you're around. And so
That's all
we
we
could
know.
just simply attend instead of having the committee.
Well, no, you would still.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but you still would need, you still would need a subcommittee, though.
Yes.
I think it would make a stronger case
Yeah.
for whatever plan or changes are made, recommendations in the future, if you've got that neutral, combined group. I feel like, there are people out there and voters who vote against everything school and vote for everything that.
It'll carry more weight.
And it would carry, it would carry more weight.
Okay, well, Diane's suggestion is that the budget committee would take a vote on,
It's just a consensus.
yeah, just a consensus vote. So I guess I will ask that question, and without getting too wordy, but that whether the budget committee would support the formation of a subcommittee involving various facets of the town to study Mel's statistical analysis and how it could or should be implemented in the school budget and structure moving forward.
A committee that includes school board members.
School board member, I mean, that's just me speaking, but I'm thinking school board members, administration, budget committee. Citizens, that's right. So you try to have everybody involved, as Ralph obviously found out. I mean, when you have a good committee that represents the community, then when you come forward with a recommendation, it's certainly, respected and noticed and listened to, So anyway, so would I have a motion from the budget committee to support that recommendation to the school board.
So moved.
Okay, a second?
Second.
All those in favor of making that recommendation to the school board, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Okay.
Nay, okay. So, okay, that recommendation is supported 6-1. Okay, well, is there anything else?
Thank you. Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you. See you at Deliberative.
Yes, for sure.